Patch 9 Garbs and Penances is here. First off, those previous penances for our classes are now secured away in the redacted category. This category still will have them be achievable, so players can work through them, with many of them having lowered and more sensible requirements associated with them. And a few of them have even been set to only be rewarded in a private game, really enforcing the players not to throw the game while trying to solo monstrosities as psychers or permanently wound themselves and rush the level as zealot. I won't really be going through all of the changes here, as they are now meant to be more of trick challenges and there's significantly lowered focus to them now, but a few highlights. Ogren's Friends Will Be Friends now only requires you to be in coherency 90% of the time instead of 100%, meaning you don't need to feel like you failed the challenge the second your team runs away from you. Veterans Make Every Shot Count now only needs 90% accuracy instead of literal perfect accuracy the entire 20-minute match. So no need to sweat with every trigger pull for fear of upsetting the penance gods anymore. Psychers Going Out with a Bang now also only requires one elite kill on self-immolation, which thank god, because I think this was one of the dumbest challenges out there, because it was basically just asking you to knock your character down. So at this point it should be a gimme and something you can get away with early in your career. And to wrap up the redacted penances, Ogren's Don't Stop Me Now, Zealot's Just a Flesh Wound, and Psyker's Malleus Monstratum are locked to private games only. As for the new penances, there are a ton of challenges, and most are incremental and linked to regular gameplay, so I'll let you guys check those out at your own leisure. Instead, we can talk more about the new cosmetics, and as already revealed in our previous comlink videos, we know what the final cosmetic sets look like for each of our classes. But with all the new penances that we've been presented with in this new patch, we're also receiving additional outfits as well. Most are starting off with a prisoner-style garb, which makes sense as these challenges are meant to be achieved early on in your character's quote-unquote career. But moving into the higher-up threads, they do start to take form and give characters different options to style their characters as scrappy rejects. Personally, I'm most excited about the different head options that we have been given access to now, with more than just one final option to be picking from. The Iron Jaw for the Ogren and the Veteran's Cap and Goggles are my personal favorites here, as I just really like the look of them. But exiting the progression and cosmetics added in this patch, there are also some various tweaks and fixes across the game to go over. First of the changes is prioritizing more melee enemies and interactions on higher difficulties. The Director that controls the spawns of elites will still send the same number of foes across the level, but they're going to be choosing less ranged enemies to mix in, which will help slow down the amount of firefights that interrupt our good old melees. Personally, I'm really happy with this change, since ranged enemies suddenly ripping our toughness away is a huge bane for zealots trying to dance in melee, and I feel like the game is most entertaining when running combos with your melee weapon and switching more periodically to your ranged weapon. And a more minor tweak is that Maulers are a bit stronger now, and they're not going to be falling over at the first heavy attack, and should now grit and bear it more often than not. I will admit that Maulers did fall over a bit too easily, and would often get lost in the horde chaff when I was cleaving through it, essentially living on the floor whenever they came out to fight. Beasts of Nurgle and Plague Ogrins are also receiving a batch of changes, with increases to their hit point pools on Damnation and decreases to those pools on lower difficulties. Each have also had their limb modifiers changed to make it easier to chunk through those higher hit point pools, especially when targeting their established weak points. And we've also gotten a handful of weapon changes, with the Power Cycler now having a tier 3 variant that grants an extra swing. Rev It Up will also run for an extra second across all chain weapons, and Bloodletter now has 4 tiers with increased bleed stacks across the entire board. There were also a couple of shotgun bug fixes, which will be seeing the end to the all-seeing eye of the Cantriel's Dragon Breath, now no longer cleaving through the entire map on its way to victory. But the good news is that Full Bore now procs if all pellets hit the enemy, even if they cleave and hit additional targets behind them, which is at least making this blessing a solid pick now, even if we are losing the ultra power of the Dragon's Breath round. Fatshark is also being mindful of feats which have experienced lower pick rates, and is providing buffs to those specifically to help kind of bring them to the same balance floor. Starting with Veteran, Accelerating Takedown now grants more toughness, and the bonus lasts for 8 seconds now. Deadshot has had its stamina cost reduced, both while ADS as well as for each shot. And bigger they are is now granting a whole 75% extra damage, which could make this an interesting pick for heavy weapon kits. As for Ogryns, Smash 'em Good now restores 25% toughness, and the best form of defense follows the same model and restores 25% toughness as well. Blood and Thunder is now granting 6 stacks of bleed, and Bloodthirst follows with a max of 6 stacks of damage resistance as well. Moving into Preacher, Martyrdom has had its damage per stacks increased to 8%, which will be making Honor the Martyr more impactful for the risk required. Purifying Blood is now up to 100% toughness restored, and Fury of the Faithful is up to 10 seconds for its duration. And finally, the Psyker's Warp Absorption feat now restores 15% toughness. And that's all for this video. If you liked the video, drop a like, comment if I missed anything, and have a great day. See ya!